Hi everyone, today's video is going to be all about cheek palettes. So I have gone on record before saying I really don't agree with cheek palettes. Maybe that's kind of strong wording, but I'm just not going to buy them because I don't feel like they're really worth it for the average person. I'm not a makeup artist in any way, shape, or form. I occasionally do makeup on other people, which usually includes like my sister, who is a little bit more fair than me, but we can pretty much get away with the same things except for like foundation. And you know, the other like random friend or so. So I don't need these palettes that are kind of all-inclusive for most skin tones, and neither do you. So I feel like a lot of cheek palettes are marketed today where they're good for all skin tones, but that means that if you are one skin tone, there are going to be shades that don't work for you. So I have collected all of my cheek palettes, and I'm going to just really quick go through them and show y'all what I think is worth it and what's not. So first I have the Loreal Beauty and the Beast cheek palette. A lot of people love this palette, and I don't. I feel like these two shades look very, very similar, which is another problem I find with cheek palettes, where you'll have like X number of shades, so like for example 4, but a couple of them just look the exact same. So, I mean, yes, this is a little more rosy, this is a little more nude, but on the cheeks they're really similar. Also, this shade Fearless is too dark for me for a highlighter, so this palette's kind of a waste for me. Now, if you have a darker skin tone, that highlighter will work, but this blush will not work. The blush in Enchanted, I feel like that blush will be too light for someone who has this skin tone. Does that make sense? So I feel like this was not a very well put together palette. Next, I have the Urban Decay Naked Flushed palettes. Now, they have multiple shades of this, which is really nice because then you can choose the shades that match you the best. I really like a pink blush that's matte, and I like a pinky white highlight. So I like these two shades. This bronzer works for me, but it's really orange. Like, really orange. So I don't feel like this bronzer would really work for anybody. Also, if you have a darker complexion, maybe this pink blush would work, but this bronzer would not because it shows up on me, but again, I'm light. And if you had a darker complexion, this would probably look a little ashy on you. So this works okay for my complexion, but the bronzer is kind of gross. So again, not the best palette. I have the IBY Highlight and Contour Palette. Now this is one of those that has 3 highlight shades that are matte and 3 contour palettes. I hate matte highlight shades. I think they're kind of dumb. I have, I know they're supposed to be like, to like matte highlight your face, which nobody does. I've tried to use them under my, what do you call this, under my eye, which I feel like some, that seems like a good use for them, and they don't work. They get really crepey really quickly. Now, the 3 contour shades are fine, but I can use all 3. This contour 3 seems really dark in the pan, but I can make it work. So again, I can make this work. The contour shades, I hate the highlight shades. I think they're dumb. But the contour shades, I can make all 3 work, so that makes me feel like if you had a darker complexion, these would not work on you. And to my knowledge, they don't have multiple shades of this. So if you like contours, this is nice, but I just do it at Kanga, poor baby. But I don't know that this would work for any, like all complexions. If you have a light skin tone, it probably would. But for me, that's kind of a waste. I have the Becca Jaclyn Hill Original Palette. So they did come out with a new palette. This is the original. And it had Pearl, Champagne Pop, and Blushed Copper. This was kind of dumb. I like Pearl. I like a white highlight, but this is a little intense for me. I personally don't like a really intense highlight, and these are very intense. Champagne Pop is pretty. It's almost too dark for me, and Blush Copper is way too dark for me, and I know you can use it as a blush topper, but I don't like a shimmery blush, and I like a matte blush. So these 2 shades could work for somebody, or these 2 shades could work for somebody, but the fact that they included both of these shades in a palette, yes, it means that this palette is friendly to all skin tones, but that also means that you're going to have shades in here that you don't use. I've tried Blush Copper as an eyeshadow, and I don't think it worked well at all. So, again, this is fine, but it's not really practical for the average person. I have the Torino Tarantino Dollskin Cheek Palette. So today I actually have on the shade Feather, which is this one. They didn't have the names on it, so I just wrote it in. This palette is okay, but look at these 2 shades. They're the same. One has glitter, one doesn't, but they're the same. So why would they be in the same palette? I don't know. I think that's kind of ridiculous. I also just don't feel like these are the best quality. I feel like they kind of patch off. So I don't love this palette for that. But I also hate that there's two colors in here that are pretty much the same. I have one of these big Benefit palettes. This is the Cheekathon palette. I believe, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first one they came out with. And it has a bunch of their everyday shades. So we've got Dallas, Coralista, Dandelion, Hula, and Rockateur. So all of these shades you can buy in like the singles, but I got this palette because these are full size and this was a really good deal. I'm gonna just chuck this brush. I don't like it and it always gets everywhere. You can see that I have dents in a lot of these blushes because of that brush. This is a good palette. Hula, I know, does not work for everybody. Some people it's too dark and some people it is too light. It works for me. All of these shades are extremely different, and I feel like that is good. That's how cheek palettes should be. Everything should be different. And for me, they all work. I could see that Dandelion might be a little light for some people, and Dallas could be a little dark. I was afraid of Dallas at first, but on the cheeks, I just think it's gorgeous. So this works for me, but again, I'm one skin tone. So I can definitely see that if you had a different skin tone than me, this might not be the best. Okay. Let's keep going. This is an old palette. This is the Sephora Pantone Universe Rush Luster Cheek Sweep. I love this palette, but not really. I love the highlighter in this palette. I used to really like the blush, and I'm not the biggest fan of it now. This shade is beautiful, but I don't know what you're supposed to do with it. I've tried it as a blush, and it's a little extreme on me. I could see that if you had a darker skin tone, all of these shades would be beautiful on you. I feel like you could pull off this blush a lot more than I can with my skin tone. And this highlighter, I feel like would work for a lot of different skin tones because it doesn't have that white base. It's just kind of shimmery, and I think it'd be beautiful. I think, now obviously I don't know, but I think it would be beautiful on everybody, and I think this blush would show up on everybody. I know that you can use this, again, as a eyeshadow, but it's just really patchy and gross. It doesn't look nice on the eyes. So I love the highlighter, that's why I have this palette still, but it's kind of a mess. And I think that this is because I bought a palette that's really not friendly for my skin tone. You know, some palettes you look at and you're like, those are all just too dark for me. And that's kind of cool. I mean, not kind of, that is cool because that means that this would work if you had a darker skin tone than me. I think that this would be beautiful on you. So I just shouldn't have bought it with my skin tone, is really what it was. Then I have the Maybelline Master Contour. Now, they have 3 or 4 shades of this. I have the light to medium, which was the lightest one. And I really like this. This contour, blush, and highlighter all work for me. This contour is nice and cool tone, and it looks great on my skin. The blush is a beautiful pinky nude, and this highlighter is just highlighty enough. It doesn't swatch well, but I feel like on the skin, it just looks really natural and beautiful. And I like this trend of coming out with a contour palette in multiple shades, or a cheek palette really, in multiple shades, because that means, hey, I have this, I can use all of them. But if you have a deeper skin tone, because again, this is the lightest, and I do feel like this contour is pretty light, and would work for most people. Now, I could be wrong. But if you have a medium skin tone, you can use a different one, and if you have a dark skin tone, you can use a different one as well, which is good, because then it's more personalized to the consumer. But you're not going to end up with a palette with a bunch of stuff you can't use. So this is a great palette, and I really recommend it. Just buy the one for your appropriate skin tone. The Lorac Cheek Palette, Unzipped Cheek Palette. This is another amazing palette. These 4 shades are all very, very different, especially on the skin. They all look extremely different, which is good. That's how it should be. I think that these shades are really unique. Now, this one shade, Unapologetic, it's similar to Blush Copper, and I don't love that. I'm going to show you. It's kind of a coppery, and it's really shimmery. I feel like Dallas is similar, but Dallas has a little bit more pink, from Benefit, sorry, and it is more matte. It's not completely matte, but it's not this shimmery. So I don't love this shade, but I could see that if you had a deeper complexion, it would look good on you. I think these shades would all look good on any complexion. I get that Unashamed is really bright, and that might be intimidating for some people. Like I said already, I like a hot pink blush, but I think you can tap it off. And these Lorac cheek products just blend into the skin. I know I've already mentioned the Beauty and the Beast and how I don't love this one, but it's not an issue with the formula, it's just an issue with the shades. These shades are great, and I think they would work for pretty much anybody. So I do recommend this guy. Kat Von D Alchemist Palette. I don't know how I feel about this. I like it. I understand that these are all white-based highlighters and they don't look good on a lot of people, which sucks because, you know, that's kind of not the point of makeup. But if you have a light to like a fair to light skin tone, maybe even a medium, you can get away with using these. And they are cool. I mean, they have, you know, the color shift. I feel like sometimes they show up really well and you can really see the purple, and other times it just looks like a white highlighter. So they're not always the best. They work for me, so I like it okay. But again, it's just kind of knowing what works for your skin tone, and I don't think this would work for a lot of people's skin tones. Paula's Choice Blush It On Contour Palette. Another palette that I really enjoy. These shades are pretty different, though I will say Delicate Coral and, no, Peony and Dusty Rose do kind of favor themselves. This one is Peony, right? No, this one's Dusty Rose. That's a terrible name for it. It's a little warmer, so they are different. And they don't swatch very well at all. But I like them on the skin, but again, they can get kind of patchy. They're not my favorite. The highlighter is okay, and the contour is nice, but we've got a white pinky highlighter, which doesn't look good on deeper skin tones, and this contour would not work for a lot of skin tones as well. So again, this is nice because it does work for me, and these shades are all appropriate for my skin tone, but it wouldn't work for everybody. So you have to kind of know what works for you. And to my knowledge, they don't have multiple shades of it. So there you go. And last but not least, I have the Lorac. Oh, I just threw that. Lorac Pirates of the Caribbean palette. I love this palette a lot. I think it is beautiful. But I can use all of these shades, but I don't love all of these shades, if that makes sense. I use Lost Soul as a contour. I know you're not technically supposed to, but that's what I do. I use Caribbean as a blush, and these four are highlights. Now again, this is like a blush topper, Bold Spirit, but you can see it's really, really reflective, so I can get away with it as a highlighter, but it's a little dark. Same thing with Destined. It is like a taupey highlighter, and blended out on my skin, it looks good, but it does that thing when you're straight on where you kind of look like you have a deeper stripe on your face, which is not a good look. I love Fortune. So I can make all of these work, but they're not all my favorite highlighter shades, if that makes sense. Star Reader is very, very gold, and that's just not my preference for a highlighter shade, but it does work for my skin. So I do feel like they did a good job making everything really unique, and I think that I personally would just prefer another blush instead of some of those shades. But again, I don't think if you had a deep complexion, I don't think this shade would show up on you at all, and I don't know that Fortune would look good on your skin tone. No, I'm not trying to say like these are hard and fast rules. If you have a really deep complexion and you love a white highlighter, girl, you do you. I think that's awesome. I wear things that people think are ridiculous all the time. But I'm just saying, like, in general, from my knowledge of applying makeup to people with different skin tones, which is not the most common thing, like I've said, and just watching videos of people with, you know, a variety of skin tones, I try to learn that way. So I can see that if you had a deeper skin tone, these wouldn't all work for you, but for me, they do. So there you go. Some of these palettes I think are great. Some of them I just think are too repetitive, and some I think I have shades that don't work for me, which is fine if you're a makeup artist, but if you're an individual consumer, it's not fine, because then it's just kind of a waste. So I think a lot of it is learning what you like and learning what looks good on you. So there could be a palette that every single person loved. What was it? The Christy Teigen palette by Becca. A lot of people loved that, and that's great, but none of those shades make the blushes, but the highlighter shades would just be too dark for me, and I knew that. So I didn't purchase that palette because it doesn't work with my skin tone. This Sephora Pantone Universe one, should not have purchased it because it really doesn't work with my skin tone. So, you know, learning what looks good on you and your skin tone, and unfortunately that means that, at least in my opinion, now I'm not telling you what to do, that sometimes you just have to forego buying something, even if it's really popular, if it doesn't work for you. Just my thoughts. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it interesting and maybe helpful, kind of to hopefully guide you with some cheap palette purchases. A lot of these I understand are like limited edition or such, but at least, you know, I feel like the comments are still relevant on any kind of palette. So I hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have any questions, requests, suggestions, or comments, go ahead and leave those down below, and I'll see you all real soon. Bye.